Long live the king, as they say. If the king would be about a foot long. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew, and today we're back with the NECA Godzilla reviews. Yes, so this is going to be the last film we're doing for the reviews because they never did anything beyond King of the Monsters, which makes sense. You know, the license expired in 2020. The figure line, well, the last movie up until that point was King of the Monsters because no Godzilla film came out in 2020. And I thought, you know, why not just kind of go numerical order? And I'm actually pretty happy of how far we've come so far because we did all the Show era stuff, all that I had for Heisei, all that I had for Millennium, stuff from 2014, Shin Godzilla, and now King of the Monsters, which technically, so to speak, this is the last design of Godzilla we're going to be taking a look at, just because like the other variants of Godzilla are just this in different colors. So yeah, this is going to be the last of the sculpts. But beyond, like, as far as figures in general, we do have a few more to look at. We have, not counting this, we have V2, the Spitfire version, Burning Godzilla, Mothra V2, and Rodan. Wait, hold on. There we go. The reason why I'm not doing Mothra V1 is because my Mothra V1 is broken, and I'd rather take a look at a product that's actually more in condition than something that's like basically broken, which is why I skipped over the 1994 Godzilla, because that one is like broken to heaven, hell, and back. And I do plan on replacing those. But as far as the actual figure line itself, I am missing a few figures, 1984, 2001, and 2003 Hybrid Maser Blast, but I do intend on picking those up relatively soon. This year will be the year where I finally complete it. I'm going to try and push for that. Anyway, back to this figure. So this is based on the Godzilla King of the Monsters film, which was released in 2019, sequel to 2014. Pretty sure I don't really need to explain it, but back then I loved this thing. It was a new coat of paint for NECA, quite literally, and it was part of their new like poster box style packaging at the time they released it. But now, like over half a decade later, does this guy really live up to the competition that high-end current monster arts are still presenting, or is this thing still hella outdated? Let's find out. So first things first is we're going to take a look at the sculpt and paint. And right off the bat, I should probably mention that while other companies opted to go for the CG model directly, NECA took a somewhat different approach. From the look of the figure, they didn't actually use the one-to-one model from the film. Instead, they used a 2014 sculpt or mold, made it higher quality, changed some things, and upgraded it to look like the KOTM Godzilla, which I guess in hindsight, that's kind of what Legendary themselves did. They took the 2014 mold, added new design elements, made it a bit more higher quality, and boom, you got the KOTM Godzilla. So technically, so to speak, it does use a bit of the KOTM design elements and like features and whatnot, but really for the most part, this is going to be retreading old ground from the 2014 figure, just with some new added parts and elements to it. Let's take a look. So for the actual head, the head is actually a lot brighter in color scheme. This is the original version that I bought, or my either sister or mom, I'm trying to remember, anyway, that was given to me all those years ago. And you can definitely see that it has a lot better of a refined mold. The detail work on the scales is actually really incredible, having this more black base with gray dry brushing, and it looks very dirty and very organic. The eyes are a little, I guess, iffy for lack of a better term, because the eyes actually look pretty fine as they do. I don't know, something about them just looks a little off. Let's move to this eye actually looks a little bit better, and my eyes actually are pretty much centered really well, and I do like the way they look here. For the dry brushing here, you can actually see it kind of gets a little bit more roughed up towards the front right here, And the snout doesn't have a whole lot of detail to it, but does have quite a bit of the black showing. We do have a bit of the nostrils. For the bottom of the jaw, kind of see more of that very dirty-esque dry brushing. Of course, all the little scales as well. For the inside of the mouth, come on, open up that pie hole. Thank you. Like I made mention, this is going to be, again, retreading old ground from 2014, so the teeth are not going to be as big as like the other NECA Gojis, but actually have a different colorization going on. The mouth is more salmon by comparison to the original 2014 figure being a lot more pink. And I just realized there's a bit of blue in there. I wonder what that's from. So we have a bit more salmon type orangish color. And the tongue is in a somewhat different position. It looks a little longer. And the bottom jaw, again, actually has a bit of detail work in there, which is actually pretty surprising. And as for the teeth, they are painted decently well. Mine's got a bit of scuffing, but again, because of how old this figure is, that's kind of to be expected. And it actually, again, looks pretty well done. If I had one gripe, it's that the orange paint doesn't like go all the way when you open up the jaw, so there is going to be a bit of the gray showing, so that is a bit of a stinkid right there. Next, we have the neck piece, which, look at this. This is beautiful, honestly. The detail work is just so good, and all the ridges here. You can definitely see what I meant by upgrading it from the 2014 figure. Essentially speaking, it's cut the exact same way as far as the articulation goes, but we'll talk about that as far as posability. But the actual, like, detail, we have little scales down here. We have the gills, which are a lot more straightened out this time. We have the neck itself here with the little ridges. And of course the dorsal plates down to like the back plate right here in all their glory. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's go to this side. Bada bing, bada boom. For the dorsal plates themselves, this is kind of what I meant by like taking nods from the 2019 model and maybe modifying it, but these are definitely bigger than how they were in the film, but they are still pretty well shaped and pretty much have the overall design down pretty much well. Something I like about the KOTM fins here is that they are very well painted. Like, they have this very tree bark almost looking look, and they have this like very fun wave pattern. It looks really organic and it looks really cool, especially like the back plates down here, and then you kind of get back up here. Let's kind of go to this side. More of the detail here is captured very, very well, especially the transitioning between the plates and the actual body. Speaking of the actual body, the scales are going to be a lot more circular as opposed to more standard Toho Godzillas where they're a bit more oval. Going here to the pecs, they're very well detailed. The paint is a little iffy, having a bit more paint on one side than the other, because you can see a lot more black. But you can definitely see at least the dry brushing still retains that awesome, kind of like very unique, kind of olive green brushing. And the shoulders especially, it looks very dirty, and I love the way it looks. A bit more squared off scaling as opposed to the main body than the various ridges as well. Underneath, you still got the black kind of peering through, because obviously that's where the paint was. So there, it's a little disappointing. But the claws here are going to be painted the olive green. Mine's a bit scuffed, again, just because of how old of a figure this is. Been exposed to the elements, it's gonna get chipped. So here's another look at this side, and let's kind of go back. I think we talked about the legs here, so let's talk about those legs. The legs are going to be pretty big, pretty meaty, but also very well done as far as the detail is concerned. Lots of rectangular-esque detail that kind of fans down. All the little intricate scaling details back here. The legs are going to be kind of folded in, obviously, because they're bent in at a more neutral posture. And the more dry brushing you see, it's just more of where the detail is going to be really elevated. And the legs are no exception. The feet here are going to have, again, the more olive green paint application, a bit scuffed on mine. I kind of wish there was a bit of shading, to be honest, because there is some detail you can kind of see, but I kind of wish there was more like a dry brush, like more line work. But for the bottom, we do have some detail work as well as copyright info. This foot, we don't really have anything. We do have a peg hold of. This one, we have the trademark and copyright Toho 2019 NECA, made in China. And lastly, for the tail, it's going to be longer than some other NECA Godzillas, not the longest, because it's a bit shorter because of the more blunt end, because of the actual design. But we do have a lot of nice intricate detail work here for each and individual segment, as well as really nice sculpt work for the dorsal plates. And something I like about the plates is that they're more rock hard this time around compared to the other NECA Gojis, where they're a lot more like rubbery. These ones you can still get a mild bendage out of, but they're a lot more solidified. I do have one problem on mine. That's going to be like this part where it looks like there's a bit of like access plastic. So that is a bit of a bummer. But we do have some more dry brushing at the bottom of the tail just to kind of get you a good look at that. So one last look for the tail here. Let's go to the other side just so you can get the full 360 view. All right, now bottom view. Side view, other side view, top view, and front view, and Godzilla's crotch. So, for the actual sculpt and paint, it's not movie accurate, I can say that much. It's very well done though. I'm really happy with what NECA did with this thing. The detail itself is very much an upgrade from the 2014 figure, even though it uses the same base design mold, question mark, even though it just modifies it. But those modifications, just outright awesome. Do I have a bit of gripes? Well, again, I kind of wish that the mouth was a bit better painted. I do kind of wish the dry brushing was a bit more consistent in some certain parts, because there are parts where it just kind of shows pure black. And I do also think that the claws could have been maybe a bit different color, because olive green for some reason definitely isn't the way to go with this one. Maybe a bit more of just a standard gray would have done a little bit better, but as a whole, I really have not that much to complain about. He's a very, very cool figure, like as far as the sculpt and paint is concerned. So I'm gonna say 8 out of 10 for the sculpt and paint. Not bad, pretty well done. Articulation. We already went over the sculpt and paint, didn't we? The jaw can open about this far out and can close that far in. There's still a little bit of a gap, so there's that. The head. You can get a mild rotation, bit side to side, and like barely up and down. Even after all these years, it's just because of the way it's cut. I think part of it is also because of the more thicker, tighter plastic, plus the head spike back there, because the 2014 figure didn't have that. This one can actually like grind up against the paint of this dorsal plate back here. And as for this neck, well, you can get a mild rotation, but it's basically locked. So the actual head articulation sadly isn't that posable, and there's really not a whole lot of give to the articulation. Shoulders, gotta be careful here, because a few years ago they did pop out on me and they refused to go back in. This shoulder can go a full 360, go out a little bit, and kind of see what I meant by like the black kind of showing. Elbows, you can bend in, bend out, and swivel as well. Swivel hinge for the wrist, so you can bend in and out. So that's actually something that was changed from the 2014 figure, because the original 2014 figure just used the standard ball peg and plugged it right into the forearm. Here, you actually get a rotation and a swivel hinge allowing better palm movement. So for the waist, huge upgrade from the 2014 figure. We can actually bend down to this far, rear back up, pushing it a little bit, about this high up, and we can actually get a pretty damn good rotation out of it, as well as a pretty decent side. Anyone who knows the Smash Strike Godzilla knows like what I'm kind of talking about when I do this, except it was kind of like on the tail. I wonder why Bandai didn't do anything for the 2019 movie. Bandai America, I should probably add. The hips can go a full 360 degrees, and there's that blue again. What is that? You leaking blue? Whatever. Moving the arm here, we can go a full 360 degrees. And a bit out to the side like that. Kind of come back in if you really want to. Okay, that's a really stiff knee. There we go. I think this knee is actually the right knee. There we go. So you can straighten out about that far. Bend inwards about this far. Can swivel like this. And for the foot, can go side to side, forward and back. And for the tail, 10 ball joints across. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is where you attach it: 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 segments. Go down, go up, right and left, just all the way around. So, I will say it's a bit too fluid sometimes, because depending on how you have it posed, it could droop. Like, for example, well, it does make it kind of realistic, like if he's just kind of going limp. Although if you do kind of go to the side, it does kind of lock in the pose a little bit. So as for the articulation, he's pretty good, I would say. He's not like spectacular. He can't really do the famous looking up rebirth scene, if you know what I'm talking about. The scene where he like looks up, straight up in the air, and fires the beam. I know technically speaking, the wrong version of Godzilla to do that, but kind of like changing out there you go. So it's a bit iffy as far as that aspect goes. I'm trying to make sure I have it in place. Okay, there you go. So you can't really move the head all that much. Arms got a pretty nice upgrade with the wrists. The waist got a little bit freed up. Legs are still decently posable, and the tail is fully posable. I would say it's overall an upgrade from the NECA 2014, but the head really doesn't do it all any favors. So 7.5 for the articulation, I would say. I feel like that's a bit low. You know what? I'll bump that up to an 8. I feel like that's fair. Anyways, next segment is going to be our accessories. And unfortunately, during the time when NECA was actually putting some accessories with their Godzilla releases, like the Godzilla 64 came with a beam effect, 62 came with a beam effect, and pretty much all the other KOTM releases, except for Burning Godzilla, this one did not come with anything. A few years ago, I did make that building. They was like inspired by vs. Kong, where you can like have the tail in there and almost like he swiped it in. That's like my own thing. So I definitely think NECA could have featured something with this release, because the V2 for the exact same price came with a beam effect and a clash effect. Mothra, both versions, came with a stand and a cocoon base. Rodan came with an alternate head, rod, explosion, and volcano. Going nuts here. I mentioned the alternate head. This Godzilla doesn't come with any of that, unfortunately. And no, the tail and the box are not accessories. That is packaging, and that is assembly to be required. So, I mean, you could have maybe had like a clear rod and have the Argo jet. But alas, that was 6 years ago. He comes with nothing. For some size reference, here he is next to his brethren, the NECA V2 and Atomic Blast and V3 Burning G. He's about like 6 inches tall and about, I would say, 10 inches long. He's not exactly 12 feet. Sorry, 12 feet. Not even, he's 12 feet. My gosh. 12 inches, I should probably say. But he is close to that scale. So, hey, at least we got the full trio. He's next, by the way. And here he also is with the Monster Arts 2019 Godzilla and the NECA 2014 Godzilla. And let me just kind of bring these guys in for a generalized comparison. Not sure if I'll do another video on these two. I think I already did one like not that long ago. So these two, take your pick, daytime, nighttime. And as for the Monster Arts, I've again already compared the two, but as far as like which figure I personally prefer, I'm happy to have this guy in my collection. But I honestly think ultimately the NECA one is going to be my favorite of the two. And that mainly comes down to one thing. Paint quality. Okay, that sounds really weird, but let me explain. This guy doesn't really have a whole lot of paint to him. Well, this guy actually has a lot and kind of brings out his details more so than this one does. And in my personal opinion, just looks a lot better. And finally, to round out the video, here he is with the Playmates GXK Godzilla standard version, the one with like standard spines and the beam effect, which is kind of bent actually, so I might have to fix that. And the NECA Toys 2021 Godzilla, which I do plan on picking up the NECA 2019 or like a pre-evolved 2024, but that's probably not for another while. So, when you're really all said and done, what do I think of this figure? He's a really nice addition, honestly. What I like about him is specifically how he looks. And he looks really well. I love his paint. I love his sculpt. There are some things I do find a little iffy about it. And the articulation on the head is like hella limited, but everything else is pretty fine and fun to pose. It kind of sucks that he doesn't come with any accessories, but at the same time, the other ones more than make up for it. But on its own, that's a little disappointing. Do I recommend this figure? If you can find it for a reasonable price, I would say between the $40 to $60 range in the box, sure, by all means. If it's between like $30 to $40 loose, sure, pick it up. That said, exercise caution because, to my knowledge, this is the most bootlegged Godzilla figure from NECA that there is. Because a lot of bootleggers, like you can look on AliExpress, by the way, there is so many bootlegs of this guy from like different companies. One of them is, I forgot the name actually, but you can literally look, there's like a billion of them. If you want to know the difference between this and the actual bootleg, look at the painting. Look at how more uniform the dry brushing is versus something like the bootleg where it looks a lot more, what's the best way of doing it? Putting this, it looks a lot more chaotic. It doesn't look right. And as well, it just doesn't look as it should. So know who you're buying from, where you're buying from, and if you find one of these, because they are still around, limited batches, sure, but I think once you actually get it, it's pretty damn good. So with that said, I overall rate this an 8 out of 10. That said, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.